She lost her mother when she was a child and her father when she was 15. And her desire to become a nun was discouraged by her confessor, and so a marriage was arranged. A son was born of this union. But she soon found herself nursing her beloved husband through a very long illness that finally led to his death. And as one biographer then put it, from an interior illumination, she understood that she was to undertake a great work under the guidance of a person she had not yet met. And that person would be the very holy priest, Vincent de Paul. And so, under the guidance of Vincent, she founded a community of nuns to be known as the Daughters of Charity. What I'd like to do this morning is to simply share with you a few thoughts about Louise de Marillac and maybe how we can imitate her, what we can learn from her. I recall my novice master telling us that first and foremost, Louise had a deep devotion to Jesus, especially to the suffering Jesus, the Jesus on the cross. She had a willingness to suffer along with him, to carry her own crosses. They tell the story of a woman who went to see her doctor because she was experiencing a lot of aches and pains. Well, the doctor was not very sympathetic towards her. He said, well, you'll just have to learn to live with it. And later, when she received her bill for $95, she sent it back with a notation on it that said, you'll just have to learn to live without it. Folks, Louise had her aches and her pains, so to speak, her sufferings, her crosses. And you know what? She learned to live with them. She learned to live with them, however, with Jesus. It was Jesus who enabled her to live with her sufferings with patience. And I think it is Jesus who enables us here to live with our problems, our worries, our aches and pains with patience. It is Jesus who gives us the strength to go on in the midst of our sufferings. I'm sure we have our aches and pains. And as Jesus was with Louise during her aches and pains, I am here today to tell you he is also here with us. Louise told her sisters that Jesus dwelt in their heart. He told them to remember his presence within them throughout the day. One time, many years ago, I was giving a retreat to young people, and I told them that Jesus dwelt in their heart. And one little kid raised his hand and said, Father, if Jesus dwells in our heart, what does he do there all day? So I'm going to tell you what I think Jesus does in our heart all day. He comforts us when we are feeling bad. He wipes the tears away from our eyes. He gives us the strength and the courage to go on. He is there when things seem to be so difficult with regard to our family. When we're having family problems, when we become ill. I know he's there when a loved one is diagnosed with cancer or when a loved one dies. My novice master told us never to take the Lord's presence within us for granted. He told us to always remember that Jesus dwells in our heart. A spiritual writer said this, and I really like it. Listen to what he says. There is an ancient legend which says that when we are created, God kisses our heart and sings to us. And the legend says that God's kiss and song remain in our heart forever. But to feel that kiss, to hear that song, requires solitude and quiet. He said we cannot feel his presence when there is noise and distractions. And he goes on to say, and so let us find a time during the day to be quiet, a time to turn to the Lord in prayer. And if we do that, we will be able to feel God's kiss and hear his song. I'm telling you that St. Louise found time each day to turn to God in prayer, to feel his kiss, and to hear his song. May we do the same thing also. You know, I've been saying that Louise had a deep love for Jesus, but folks, she also had a deep love for people, for others, especially the poor and the needy. A little boy ran into the house one day to his mom, who was in the kitchen, and he said, "Mom, could you give me 50 cents for a poor man outside who was crying?" And the mother said, "Oh, sure, son. Here's 50 cents. And you are such a good, caring boy to be concerned about someone else. Ah, the poor man. What is he crying about?" And as the little boy ran off with the money, he shouted back, "He's crying, fresh roasted peanuts, 50 cents. You know, in Louise's time, there are a lot of people who are crying out for help. And they were crying out for help because they were hurting. They were hurting because they were poor. They were homeless. They were abandoned. They were slaves on galley ships. And I want to tell you, Louise heard their cries, and she came to help them. There is a message for us here today. There are a lot of people out there who are in need. They need our help, like people needed the help of Louise. Please, when we leave here, let us be aware of the needs of others, and let us try to reach out to help them as Louise did. A woman tells this story. Soon after their last child left home for college, her husband was resting next to her on the couch with his head in her lap. And she said that she very carefully removed his glasses. And then very sweetly she said, "You know, dear, without your glasses, you look like the same handsome man that I married." And with a little grin on his face, he said, "Well, sweetheart, without my glasses, you still look pretty good too." You want to know something? With or without glasses, when Louise looked at other people, she saw someone who did not simply look pretty good, but she saw someone who looked like Jesus. She once told her sisters that when they went out to serve the poor, they should see Jesus in them. She reminded them of what Jesus said in the gospel that we heard this morning. In effect, whatsoever you do to or for others, you do to or for me. Hey, folks, Louise reminds each of us to see Jesus in other people and to treat them as we would want to treat Jesus. So those are the thoughts that I wanted to share with you this morning about that wonderful woman, St. Louise de Marillac. Please, let us wish her a very happy feast day. And let us thank her for reminding us that we should have a deep love for Jesus and a desire to bring that Jesus to others, especially those who are in need.